Welcome back to the AI-enabled GTM. I'm Stu Schmidt, and I'm joined today by Abe Smith, which is kind of like having Eric Clapton show up for your jam.
I
Before
don't know what
we,
jams you're into, but thank you.
yeah, you're quite well. Well, it is for me. It's like having Eric show up. But before we dive in, I've got a request for all of our thousands of friends out there, right? All of you who know Abe and I have worked together in the past, etc. This channel is in its infancy, and we need your help to grow it. So hit the subscribe button, like this video, which I'm sure you will anyway. It's easy and free and really helps us out. And if you have a magic aha moment at any time in the show, please let us know in the comments. Turns out the algorithm really likes comments. Now, without further ado, let me introduce Abe. Abe has got over 25 years of tech executive experience leading go-to-market with a real focus on global hyper expansion or international hyper expansion. He's worked with some of the largest tech companies in the world and driven phenomenal revenues. Now, currently, and I want to ask you a little bit more about this, you're driving investments in go-to-market AI and advanced AI research. Tell me a little bit more. What are you doing on that?
Yeah, real simple. Look, first of all, thanks for having me with you. It's you're the legend, so it's actually like playing with Jeff Beck. I think I don't know,
Okay,
maybe
there
that's
we
the
go.
parallel, but we'll bring that to bear as well. Look,
Yeah.
it's when you've been around and fortunate been around some of the great companies in Silicon Valley, whether they're the large ones like Oracle or Cisco, or more progressive ones like WebEx or Zoom, or some interesting ones that I'm involved in today. You want to tell the story, but you want to apply the output, and that's really what I'm doing now. It's a move from being a full time operator to more focused on venture investment and hyper growth, specifically with a concentration in AI, and then also like applying the the hard lessons I've learned. And then actually learning along the way on the new lessons on AI and applying that into more
Right.
stylized go to market. That's my focus today, Stu.
That's perfect. And I mean, you're in exactly the right place, leading exactly the right thing, because, you know, it's disheartening to me that so many people are talking about AI and GTM, but so few actually know what they're doing yet. And that's what we hope to be able to impact by some of these discussions. So it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
So one
Good
of
to be here.
one of the things I want to talk about is that and maybe this goes to this, low adoption of AI and go to market, but some people are saying that AI is going to usher in the era of the death of the person, that salespeople will no longer be relevant. What's your take on that?
Look, I think, AI is gonna impact everything, and sales is
Yeah.
not unique. I think sales is part of that disruption. But the truth is, the craft persists, but the craft persists in a more productive way. And then I also
Uh-huh.
think that if you separate the selling world, especially as you relate to high tech sales, you've got high transactional velocity sales, and then you've got probably more
Mm,
stylized enterprise sale. You could say there is death of a salesman on the transactional side. So, my belief is that that's going to be highly disintermediated. And the truth is that if it's ushering and guiding a client to an outcome, educating the client and assisting in that education and converting, whether that modality is through voice or text or email, guess what? That is going to be disintermediated
that's going
by
to happen. Right.
it's happening, right? So
It is. It is.
I think we're seeing that. I think there's another side of the coin as it pertains to, more enterprise advanced selling. Look, what
Yes.
we are seeing already is that there's a greater productivity per head count. There's no question about that. And I look at it almost like the Top Gun Maverick scenario or, the Formula One racer. Like you will
Right.
have the crew around you. You'll have the information that will allow you to put the Iron Man suit on or the Iron Woman suit on and turn into that superhero. And the reality is that that comes from information, that comes from direction, that comes from lowering the administrative friction that often happens in sales, whether that's high end sales or low end sales. And I think that directs the seller into a much more focused approach that allows him or her to use the skills that were inherently taught, which is the art of the Jedi, the craft of the Jedi.
Got it. So it's not just the science. There's the art, right?
Still is, yeah.
So
I
exactly.
think you
So
agree with
you've
that. You agree with that
Oh
philosophy.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I've been preaching that forever, as you know, right? I'm a big believer. But, it's interesting to me, a couple things that you said there. The Formula 1 driver is a great example. If you take a look at the wheel of a Formula 1 car back, 30, 40 years ago, it's a steering wheel. And they've got a tachometer and they've got a speed gauge, right? You take a look at a modern Formula 1 car, 22, 23 buttons on that thing, right? And all kinds of displays and all kinds of information coming back. So, yeah, the advance has happened, but, as these Jedi, we have to learn how to use that lightsaber.
Well, that's it. Or in the Formula One example, which is a perfect one. The truth is, like, you can't the skill of when to turn, when to come into the pit, when to get back on the track, when to attack the driver.
Yeah,
Those are intuitive, and those are learned from the 10,000 plus hours on the track. Whether that starts in
right.
go karting or riding a regular car or jumping into the Formula One car. I think the difference is when you have the pit crew that is turning the tires in 1.7 seconds and getting you back on the track, or
Right.
you are highly regulated from the team that's reading information directly into your ear that guess what? Verstappen is right behind you and is coming up fast. The truth is
Yeah,
that is how you predict and how you drive outcome. And you know what? The same is exactly true for enterprise selling. Like, so
yeah,
imagine that you had the Fitbit for sales, or imagine that you had your actual team behind you, in imparting that information in real time,
yeah,
directing you away from the bogeys that are going to hit you on the right hand side of the face, or taking conversational intelligence from the call, a call like this, and then sequences that into administrative actions immediately. You keep the process going. And then actually you reduce the friction for the seller, which is so key. We've talked about that forever, Stu, as leaders,
yeah,
as chief
yeah,
revenue officers, or VPs of sales. We always talk about allowing the sellers to sell more. Well, the truth is,
yeah,
I agree with that. The truth is, the system, the team, the support behind the seller makes for an incredible outcome and then allows the craft to really emerge.
yeah. Beautifully said. All right. So in the past, I know we've spoken about this a little bit, not in great depth, but you've spoken to me about the pillars of enabling go to market with AI. Tell me more. What are those pillars?
Yeah, and I've thought a lot about this because I've lived the
Yeah.
mistake of not recognizing fast enough that things are changing around us. And the truth is, the incumbency for a leader like myself or yourself or others that are out in the market today or listening to this podcast is you've got to change. Because if you're leading people the way you were last year or the way you were leading certainly 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that's a whole different story. You have to emerge. So I've kind of boiled down to four areas or four, I guess you could say, pillars to your point that I think actually drive this outcome more effectively.
Okay.
Number one, yeah, let's start with a simple set. What we were referring to before is the stack. So I think there's a whole new set of
Yeah.
tools, and they're probably not the ones that you're accustomed to, right? So there are tools that are going to help facilitate this kind of outcome that we just described, whether that's the transactional mode or the large enterprise. So I think the stack is emerging quite differently. And then bringing in those tools is step number one, or part of the pillars, using the right stack. Number two is then having what we would call the revenue architect, right? So
Oh,
the
okay.
role is, as we know, is changing away from traditional sales ops, probably even traditional sales revenue or chief revenue officer, into more of a revenue architect. You're seeing that actually with titles emerging and changing online. But what that means
Right.
to me is actually how you turn the knobs, right? So if we're now
Got it.
deploying agents or we're deploying advanced technology to help drive this kind of outcome, the fidelity on how the system is reckoned or the fidelity of how the knobs are turned revolves around a whole different kind of leader that is helping
Uh,
this operation deploy correctly. Number three, in my mind,
just before you
okay,
go on to number
yeah,
3, I just want to join these last two for just a second, because you've seen this as well. I've done a little bit of research on how many tools there are out there, and some people say, hey, in marketing, it might be like over 10,000, maybe even
is
14,000 different tools. And in sales, it's at least like direct enterprise sales, it's at least 1,200 minimum. And
you're
then
right.
you've got this chief revenue architect. So is one part of the role of this chief architect to put together which knobs go on the steering wheel?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Like, so first of all, you have to see what systems of record exist in a company. So
Okay.
that conversion or adaptation doesn't happen overnight. There's legacy systems, whether that's Salesforce or otherwise, that still are really important and part of the puzzle. And connecting the puzzle pieces is part of the job of the revenue architect. And then actually turning the dials so that, you've got that stack working as productively and as great as possible. And then also acknowledging that there's going to be new tools tomorrow or the next day or the next day after that, and keeping informed and keeping aware. I also think it's natively building and constructing some homegrown elements of that. And I'm seeing
Ah, that's interesting.
some terrific leaders that are doing a wonderful job on that. So, which then I think leads to point number 3, which is around
Yeah.
methodology, which I know is super near and dear to your heart as it is to mine.
Yes.
And we've built careers around medpick or challenger sales or value selling, or I hate to say it, even Miller Hyman and others, which,
Yeah.
to date ourselves. Today,
Yeah.
that information, first of all, could go into the sales LLM, number one. Number two,
Yeah.
I think they're outdated. Like, so there's a whole new direction of how that sales process is going to work, aligning more accurately with the customer journey, and then specifically driving the outcomes for the seller in a more productive way. I know you probably have a thought on that one, on number 3.
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. To me, the transformation is a simple one, and I'm not throwing stones here at anybody, but those methodologies are outdated. They really are. They're focused on a sales process driving something to happen, and in today's world, it's the buyer. It's the buying journey.
Amen.
It's the buyer that moves,
Yeah.
and what you have to do now as a salesperson, I think, is to facilitate the buyer, right? Facilitate the buying journey. It's not a sales process. It's understanding what the buyer is going through and then making, you know, going back to what you said about the salesperson, it applies to the buyer now, removing the friction.
Totally,
I think that,
totally. And
yeah,
those signals are everywhere, right? It goes back to the
yes,
stack. And, if you're collecting that information, you're going in the right direction. And actually, the direction is taking you down the road. That new triptych is the new GPS, right? It's a
right,
much more advanced Apple CarPlay GPS or whatever the flavor is. I think that
right.
all plays into point number 3, is that
Okay.
roadmap is not your traditional sales
Yep.
methodology anymore. And I just don't think you pick it out of the usual suspects. And then number 4 really revolves around the talent. So, if you
Okay.
have a whole new
Yeah.
stack, if the rev architect is designing this in a very intelligent, advanced way, if the methodology is different, then so is your talent, right? So your
Right.
talent isn't the normal perpetual software seller by any means, and it's certainly not even the SaaS or cloud
Right.
disciple that grew up in that
Right.
world of selling cloud applications. I think there's a whole type of a new person that actually can consume this at the individual contributor level, at the manager level, at the director level, and the VP and the CRO. So, that hierarchy starts to change. That type of person starts to change. And then there's some
Yep.
really fantastic folks on the talent side that are identifying this kind of person. They might have more product stylization. They might have more technical aptitude. And then frankly, they still have the grit and aptitude, which goes back to the fundamental elements of selling,
Right.
because you still have the mechanics. And every day you got to get up and make sure that you're driving outcome and that you're
Yep.
working on building relation and rapport. And then you're negotiating the right outcome for your company.
Yeah, I think that talent thing is huge. I mean, I read an article the other day about, completely re-engineering the way you think about hiring people and what their profiles have to be. And, we've all heard it so many times lately that if you're not keeping up, you're falling behind too far.
Percent.
We have to be on the forefront of what's happening here with AI. So that's what it's all about.
Well, I think
Um,
you saw it, Stu. We saw it
yeah,
firsthand when we were building the cloud. The cloud was disrupting
yes,
traditional on-premise perpetual software. And that meant everything had to change. The pricing model, the go-to-market, the
yeah,
type of talent, the tools that we use, we built it from the ground up.
yeah,
The same
yeah,
thing is happening with AI. AI first native companies are disrupting the cloud. They're changing the game. So
yes,
again, you either learn how to play the new game or you go off and do something else. But, you know, for the people that love the sport and have that pure
right.
passion for selling, you got to be in this category. You got to be doing what we
You
do.
got to be in this category. You definitely do. Oh wow, I tell you, this is deep stuff. I could probably talk for hours, but just want to sort of close off here because again, we want to keep this digestible so that
Yeah.
people keep smashing that like button. So, any sort of final thoughts or advice for our audience? I
Yeah.
think
Look, it's
advice, especially.
it's not the apocalypse by any means. So I think
Good.
AI creates a new opportunity for everybody. And the truth is embrace it. You've heard that
Yep.
trite statement, but embrace it. And then the next level is apply the craft.
Got
Evolve
it.
the craft. Be the leader and evolve the craft, but do not dismiss the hustle because the truth is grit and determination, persistence, and that aptitude is still number one. And that's what
Yes.
differentiates the human touch. And then I would actually say, show care, show trust, love
Yes.
what you do, love who you do it
Yes.
with. And then actually the world works out to be a pretty good place. That's my simple level of advice.
It's a great summary. It's moving actually because you're absolutely right. And building that trust, I like to use the word building that trust intentionally, like doing that with a bit of a science as well. And that will change your world, that will change your customers' world, and things will be happy. So,
It's rules.
uh, yeah, Abe, this is fascinating. I'm going to have you back. We're going to talk some more. But audience, again, thank you. But don't forget to smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. As I said earlier, it really helps us out. And I know Abe and I have got a lot of friends out there who know us. So we're going to come for you uh, if you don't subscribe and hit that like button. And by the way, if you want to be a guest on the show, reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. The link is below in the description and yep, exactly. Actually, I think it's this way. Yeah, I think it's down in the description. Right. So, uh, farewell. Until next time, be safe, be well, and know that you are appreciated.